It was May 28, 1973, a clear morning near Mount Gambier, South Australia. 9 divers arrived at a remote farm paddock, unaware that their dive that day would change the future of cave diving in Australia forever. They stood at the edge of a hole in the ground, barely a meter wide. From the surface, it didn't look like much, just a narrow opening in a field. But beneath that unassuming entrance lay one of the most deceptively dangerous underwater caves in the world, a flooded limestone chamber known as the Shaft. 4 of those divers would never come back, and none of them saw it coming. The cave had only recently become popular among adventurous divers. Crystal clear water, vast chambers, a sense of mystery. The Shaft drew them in like a siren's call. That morning, the group had already done a successful dive the day before, dropping a weighted shot line down to the cave's central landmark, a massive rock pile 40 meters below the surface. The rock pile was considered the point of no return. Beyond it, the cave twisted into darkness, unknown territory, unsafe territory. The plan was simple: descend to the rock pile, explore the perimeter a bit, then come back up. Nothing too deep, nothing too risky, but the water was clear, the adrenaline was high, and plans changed. The group geared up. 8 divers went in. 1 stayed behind on the surface, prepping hot soup, waiting for their safe return. No one tied a safety guideline. No one assigned clear buddies. No extra air tanks were staged. And the shot line didn't even reach the bottom. It was 1973, the early days of cave diving, and back then, safety protocols weren't just optional. They were often ignored. One by one, the divers dropped through the vertical shaft and entered a massive submerged cavern nearly 140 meters long and 80 meters wide, a cathedral of stone and silence, lit only by the glow of their torches. As they reached the rock pile, a few divers signaled they were going deeper, past the safe zone, toward the shadowy tunnels sloping away into unknown depths. Robert Smith, the most experienced of the group, stopped at 55 meters. He could feel the nitrogen narcosis kicking in. His thoughts were clouded, but he had the sense to turn back. He signaled to the others to do the same. But the group signaled that they were going to continue exploring, and they waved him off and disappeared into the darkness. That was the last time he saw most of them alive. Smith stayed by the rock pile, circling it for around 8 minutes. He then saw the torch of Glenn Malott returning from the direction the others had gone. He was low on air and had tried to warn his sister Christine to turn back, but she had vanished into the tunnel. Smith and Glenn Malott met and surfaced together. Seconds later, 2 more surfaced: Peter Burr and Larry Reynolds, barely alive, their tanks running dry. By now, panic was setting in.
We need to get down there!
Everyone, just calm down.
Knowing the others would have similarly low air supplies, Glenn Malott strapped on a spare tank and went back down. But the silt was everywhere. Visibility was gone. He reached a depth of 225 feet and saw only swirling mud and a torch lying abandoned on the floor. There was no sign of the others. Down in the abyss, things had gone terribly wrong. Christine Malott and Gordon Roberts were seen trying to swim directly upward, but not toward the exit. They had taken a wrong turn and ended up trapped inside a dome-shaped air pocket in the ceiling. A dead end. No exit, no light. Witnesses said they looked terrified, waving their torches frantically before the light vanished forever. Likely suffering from nitrogen narcosis and surrounded in silt allowing minimal visibility, the 2 failed to find an exit. Christine and Gordon ran out of air and drowned. Reports suggest that Christine Malott and Gordon Roberts may have been holding each other, as they knew their death was imminent. Their bodies later found huddled together beneath the stone ceiling. And deeper still, John Bockerman, likely suffering extreme nitrogen narcosis, had swum strongly downwards, further into a tunnel no one else dared enter. His body was later found 20 feet beyond where anyone had last seen him. He had simply vanished into the blackness. Stephen Malott's fate was stranger. His torch and camera were found deep at the base of the rock pile, but his body was discovered days later, much higher up, wedged under an overhang at only 15 meters, buoyant, lifeless. No one knows exactly how he got there. The day after the tragedy, May 29, 1973, police divers from the Underwater Recovery Squad entered the shaft. They descended to 200 feet, but they were unprepared. The water was too deep, the environment too hostile, the silt, the cold, the darkness. It was all too much. No bodies were found. Chief Inspector Wallace Budd later described the effort as a learn-as-you-go operation, and everyone knew it. A second dive the very next day ended the same way. Nothing, no signs, no hope. The police postponed their search. They would need naval support, but training those divers would take months, so the cave sat untouched and filled with ghosts. Then, 8 months later, in January of 1974, a television film crew arrived. They weren't there to recover bodies, they were filming a documentary on cave diving in the region. On January 22nd, they dropped into the shaft with professional lighting equipment, illuminating the cave like daylight, something no diver had ever seen at that depth. Then, something moved. A technician noticed a figure behind 2 divers, except no one else was down there. They surfaced immediately. The next morning, January 23rd, police divers returned to the site. At just 50 feet, 15 meters beneath the surface, under a sloped rock ledge, they found a lone body floating gently in the shadows. It was Stephen Millott, the youngest of the lost divers. The others were still missing. As pressure mounted, the landowners, increasingly disturbed by the bodies on their property, approached a Melbourne-based amateur dive team for help. But by March, the police were ready. They had upgraded their gear. They had trained for this. On March 9, 1974, diver R.G. Traynor descended into the cave with a new team. At 185 feet, 56 meters, he saw something. One body, then another. Christine Millott and Gordon Roberts, stacked one above the other, still near the ceiling dome where they had been trapped. Then 20 feet deeper, at 215 feet, 66 meters, the deepest any body had been found yet, he spotted John Bockerman, wedged beneath a rock ledge. Traynor tried to move the body, but with his air supply dwindling, he had to abandon the attempt. The next day, the team returned, but the cave had changed. The silt had risen. Visibility was zero. They couldn't find the bodies again. Several attempts failed until March 11th, when they finally recovered the bodies of Christine Millott and Gordon Roberts from 195 feet, 59 meters below the surface. They attempted to bring Bockerman out the next day, but at 66 meters, the narcosis hit hard. Disoriented and dizzy, the divers were forced to abort the mission. That depth was pushing human limits, and everyone knew it. The team went home for a month, not just to rest, but to survive. In April, they returned, this time with a plan. Day 1, locate the body and fix a guideline. Day 2, rest and recover from potential narcosis. Day 3, go back and bring him home. Even with better gear and procedures, the narcosis hit again. The water was cold, the air was tight, the clock was ticking. But this time, it worked. On April 9, 1974, exactly 11 months and 11 days after the accident, they recovered the final victim, John H. Bockerman, brought back from 215 feet below, from the darkest corner of the shaft. It was one of the longest and most dangerous body recoveries in Australian diving history. But finally, all 4 were home. 4 lives lost, 4 others forever changed. The official cause of death, lack of air, followed by terminal drowning. But the deeper cause? Overconfidence, poor planning, ignoring basic safety rules, no guideline, no redundancy, no clear dive leader. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a wake-up call. The 1973 shaft tragedy led to sweeping changes in Australia's cave diving community. It triggered the formation of the Cave Divers Association of Australia. It pushed for mandatory certifications, stricter site access, and emergency response training. It forced the police recovery units to upgrade their gear and procedures, and it changed the way divers approached deep cave systems, not as playgrounds, but as unforgiving environments where one mistake can mean death. To this day, no other deaths have occurred in the shaft, because the people who go there now know what happened in 1973. They know the cost of complacency. We believe that by remembering these tragedies, we honor the lives lost and learn from the mistakes made. If you want to join us in bringing these stories to light, please subscribe to Unveiled Fables and ring the bell icon so you never miss a chapter.